So you guys obviously are third period, but to find this essay, or this handout, you will look at the week of January 25th through the 29th. You're going to keep rolling with those bell ringers. Your reading detective, this is about the heart and the benefits of exercise on your heart, which is all nonfiction. Okay, it's meant to educate you about exercise and the effect on your heart. You'll have a word of the day test that you will need to do. Same thing as they've always been. And then here's the writing workshop handout, and then another handout that we're going to do, practicing with that, the information that you get from this. So you watch the video, go over the handout. There are no blanks to fill in, so you're not going to get points for filling in the blanks like on previous handouts, but I do want you to submit something telling me that you did watch the video of how to do this. So you'll click on here and the handout will pop up. But I am going to show you, I have a printed out version here that I think is easier for me. So what I'm going to do is kind of, before, when I've been talking, with kiddos and they've been telling me about essays, they'll raise their hand and say, I don't know how to start. I don't know how to start, Ms. Nash. How can I do this big long essay when I can't even get started? So what I did was I kind of put together this writing workshop, and this is all about introductions. This whole page is about how you start writing that essay, because it can be really hard to, just look at a blank screen and start typing, and, you don't know where to start. So I have this, information here about, how the introduction is the impression people get of your paper. You really have to kind of capture the interest of the reader right away. And so I have here the 4 things that an introduction should do. Introduce the topic. Are you writing an essay on, a certain type of disease for science class, or are you writing this on a historical event like a presidential election, something like that. So we need to know what it is the paper is about, how you're going to, develop it, like meaning, I'm going to talk about this chronologically, or maybe, the cause and effect, maybe, the classification, narration, or explanation, things like that. You have to have a thesis statement, okay? And that's really big. And if you don't know what a thesis statement is yet, that's okay. You will. You also have to kind of keep the reader wanting more. Maybe in elementary school, your teachers might have called this the hook, kind of like what you interest your reader with. And that's kind of what your introduction should do. Kind of like when, your teacher or whoever is reading this is done with that very first introduction paragraph, should say, I kind of want to read more about this. So I've broken this up into 4 different introduction styles. Okay, and I've numbered them. You've got your funnel introduction, quotation, and then on the back, we've got definition and question. Okay, so the funnel, you can read here, it says, starts with a wide topic, and then it becomes more narrow, just like, an actual funnel, okay, not a funnel cake. But it says, in a way, the information is funneled to this thesis statement. So, for example, birds, pigs, rats, and other animals all have special talents which have been used by humans. Birds can talk, pigs can find truffles, rats can run wires through walls for plumbers, but no animal has quite as many special talents as dogs, especially when it comes to helping ranchers. So with a funnel, you're starting by naming all kinds of animals, pigs, birds, rats, but then you funnel down to just one in particular, which is dogs. So maybe you could say Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man are all superheroes, but my favorite is Iron Man. So you start with kind of like, listing a lot of things and then funneling it down to one specific topic. And this is going to be about, for example, how dogs can help, ranchers. So then the rest of their essay would be what they can do. So a lot of my kids really like the funnel introduction. They like to think of a big topic and then funnel it down to just what their main point their paper is going to talk about. And it's a really effective way to start a paper. Okay, now we have the quotation introduction. Very effective. I really like it. I think it's really interesting because it uses a quote to introduce the topic. For example here, never trust a man that a dog doesn't like. And notice it's in quotes because that's something that, somebody has said. It's right here, the Proverbs says. So this is, a famous saying. This somehow implies that dogs can tell the character of a person before a human can. In many ways, this is true. Dogs have amazing talents when it comes to assessing a person's character. But how do they do it? Pet behaviorists give the following explanations, and then, keeps on moving from there. So you can see that, this quote is how you spark the interest of the reader so that they want to keep reading more. It could be a famous quote like, Nike, just do it. And that could be maybe the start for your essay on exercise. Or, maybe you could find a famous quote from, a president and then write an essay about him as a president. So quotation introductions are really always a great option for starting an essay. So these two right here are just different ways that you can start writing your essay. When people say, I don't know how to start, we'll think, okay, I've got to write an essay on Abraham Lincoln. And then you search for a quote that he did, and boom, you've got your first, you've started writing, and that's one of the hardest parts. Okay. Now, you've got the definition, and you've got the introduction, or the question introduction, sorry. Okay, so the definition introduction is one of my favorites. I've used this for a lot of different essays that I had to write in college. People have, come to me as their former English teacher and say, hey, I have an essay due for this class, can you help me? And we usually kind of stick with the definition introduction. And I'll explain why. So it says, in a definition introduction, the writer states a definition that they look up from the dictionary. And in this example, it says the dictionary defines tragedy. So we put the word that we're going to look up in quotation marks, and then we list the definition straight in quotation marks because, we didn't come up with it. We got it from a dictionary, so we have to put it inside quotes. But once you do that, once you start out a sentence with the dictionary definition, then you can go on and talk about, what it was that, happened. Like, what was the tragedy? In this case, it's talking about a fire that happened in 1911, so a historical event. So if you can find a word that you can look up for a dictionary definition, that gets the ball rolling on, all kinds of things. Like, by using the word tragedy, I know that the rest of the paper is going to be about some tragic event that happened, and it is about the Triangle Straight Rice Factory of 1911. So, but the reason why I say this is such a good one is right here. For your end of the year test, the one that you have to do on the computer, and it's, it's not timed, but it's like your summative assessment. They give you a dictionary tool. And one of the things that you can do is look up a dictionary definition of a word and then keep going. So whatever topic it is they give you, if they give you, something that you aren't very familiar with, you can maybe even just at least think of a word that's closely related to it, look it up in the dictionary, and go from there, because you do have that tool on the end of their test. So that's why I always kind of tell my kids, to star it, because if you can't think of a funnel or you can't think of a quotation off the top of your head, you can always use your dictionary tool on your test to look that up. All right, and the last one is the question introduction. Asking a question at the beginning of an essay is a useful tool for drawing the reader in. A lot of your elementary school teachers taught you this way. They taught you to ask a question. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? I have. I'm going to tell you about the time I went on vacation to Kings Island and rode a roller coaster. And I'm going to tell you guys what I've told every class, since I started teaching this class, is that's a great introduction for someone who is in elementary school. But you guys aren't anymore. You all are in middle school now, so you need to start writing like it. Okay, so a question introduction, I always kind of say for someone who's matured now to 7th grade, you can always use a question, but it needs to be something that you can't answer in yes or no. That keeps you from having those really little kiddish type questions at the beginning of your essay, like, I like ice cream. Do you? Here's my essay about ice cream. That's just very juvenile. But like I said, if you're in 4th grade, that's great. But you guys are in 7th now. So try to, if you're going to use a question style instruction in your essay, try to make it something a little bit more difficult to answer. So, for example, it says, who would willingly plunge into water that never gets warmer than 10 degrees Celsius? Can I answer that question with yes or no? No, I can't. So I would accept that as an acceptable way to answer to start your essay. And then it goes down from here about people who are, scuba diving in very cold water. So it's a really, effective way to answer or start an introduction. So you have those 4 types: the funnel, the quotation, the definition, and the question. And then down here, we're talking about the thesis statement, okay, which basically, if you can just remember this in your head, the thesis is the main idea, okay? The thesis statement should just kind of answer the sentence of what the heck your paper is going to be about. Your history teacher says, write an essay on Abraham Lincoln. That's your main idea. Write an essay on, pneumonia in science class. That's what your main idea is going to be about. But your thesis statement, it says it must have it in your introduction. It can't come, anywhere else in the paper. It has to be right off the bat in the introduction. This statement is a roadmap of what you will discuss in each paragraph. So meaning, the greatest things in my opinion about dogs is that they provide companionship, serve their masters, and reduce stress. So because this is my thesis statement, I know that I'm going to obviously be talking about dogs. And then the way that I'm going to organize my paper, in the first paragraph, it's going to be all about how they're great, for companionship. And I'm going to talk about that for, 1 paragraph, maybe more. I'm going to give examples. I'm going to, quote some things. Then my second paragraph is going to be about how they serve their masters. And I can talk about, service dogs, like for the blind or the hearing impaired. I can talk about, fetching and all kinds of different things in that, the next section of my paper. And then my last part of my thesis should talk about how they reduce stress. And I can give all kinds of statistics about people who own dogs report having less stress than people that don't, or things like that. So a thesis statement should be the main idea, but also your list. And when you say thesis, it almost kind of sounds like the list. You're listing how you're going to organize your paper. So you need to have, one of these 4 introductions that we talked about that includes a thesis statement, okay, that lists how you're going to arrange your paper. So we're going to do some work to practicing with the different types of introductions, and you're going to label some, tell me which kind it's an example of. You're going to create your own, and we're going to talk more about thesis statements. But I just wanted you to watch this video, go through, the different types of introductions that we have here, and start to talk about thesis statements, because we're going to be talking about this for a long while, and you will have a test on it. So just message, not message me, but submit in the assignment that you've watched it, and you'll get your points. Thanks, guys.